We are learning a sikha from Chelik Aleph, Lekutei Sichos, Parshas Bahar. Now, Bahar b'Chokoisai, when it comes together especially Parshas b'Chokoisai is something that's read in close proximity to Shavuos. And this sikha is, even though the beginning of the sikha begins talking with the topic of Shemita and the significance of Shemita and Avodas Hashem and so on, it continues speaking a lot about Har Sinai. It says that this was what was said Har Sinai. The Rebbe speaks a lot about Sinai and Har and the whole idea of Torah, the Torah's connection with a Har, the Torah's connection with Sinai. So it's really very a proposed sikha as a preparation for Shavuos, and if you will, in a certain way, there's more over here about Shavuos and Har Sinai than so much about Shemitah, even though that's what the beginning of the sikha is about. B'tchilas haparsha nemar v'daber havai el Moshe b'Har Sinai goymer v'shav zahar Shabbos la'avai Rashi omer b'yachas lazeh b'shem Torah's koyanim ma inyan Shemitah etol Har Sinai v'alei kol ha'mitzvos nam Sinai. In other words, that you have Vaydaber Hashem or Moshe b'Har Sinai. Every mitzvah was said by Har Sinai. Why Davke by Shemitah does the Torah have to point out? You know it was said by Har Sinai. What's the chiddush? Ella Mash Shemitah Namra Kol Yisavdu Sinai. We have in this parsha, in Parshas Bahar, a lot of details about the halachas of Shemitah. So just like all of those things, it says right away at the beginning, Bahar Sinai, meaning all these halachas that we're going to learn in this parsha were said on Har Sinai. Also, all of them, in other words, every single mitzvah, not just the klal of the mitzvah was said on Har Sinai, but also their details was given over on Har Sinai as well. And this is a limud that we learn out from Shemitah by Parshas Bahar for all mitzvahs. Rebbe wants to know Yeshef Elohavim Ma'du Mefia Hayra Bahar Sinai. Dafkel Gabe Mitzvah Shemita. This idea is something that's shaykh all over. It's shaykh not just by the mitzvah of Shemitah, it's shaykh by every mitzvah in the Torah. So theoretically, the Torah could have used any mitzvah as an example by starting it off, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Bahar Sinai, some other mitzvah, whatever it is. There's many other mitzvahs that you could have derived it from. Why is it dafkel gabe mitzvah shmita? Bari cholos hayros uli kos gabe mitzvah cheres shel gabe nimnim klalav duka. Maybe v'haftalach kamoicha it doesn't really apply because over there the Torah doesn't specify details over there. But other mitzvahs that the Torah specifies details, whatever, different mitzvahs that the Torah specifies details. So you could say, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'Har Sinai leimer this and this mitzvah, and then from that we're going to know, just like these details, so too all the details in the mitzvah were given on Har Sinai. U'ma'oisa mitzvah haven ayanilmed davar zeh shediktuki kol ha-mitzvahs namra misinai. Amnom yitolchen l'taras, we can answer shezeh mishum shemitzvah shmita kvar mefia by from klali pars mishpatim lacher matan Torah. We already find this mitzvah earlier in pars mishpatim. And that was said after Matan Torah. Mishpatim is after Parshas Yisrael. What does it say in Parshas Mishpatim? Bashvius tishmatena v'natashta. You will make it a shmita. You will leave the field alone. But Parshas Bahari nishnas boifim mefuret. But in our Parsha it comes down now in detail. So therefore, this is a chiddush. Something that says earlier in a general way, now it says it in detail, comes to tell you, give a look. You see other mitzvahs as well. Some places it says in general, some places it says in detail. You should know everything was given on Har Sinai. Ram Einter is a maspik. Shekin yesh mitzvahs neitzafas and mafiyas b'Paras Mishpatim. You can find other mitzvahs like this in Paras Mishpatim, and they could have said by them, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'Har Sinai, concerning those mitzvahs. Now the question is even more so. If you're going to pick a mitzvah, it should have most probably been a mitzvah that's more all-encompassing, more applicable to many more places and many more situations. Yes, al kein koshem mitzvah she'man nilmadim dvarim legabe shara mitzvah tzrich aliyas mitzvah klal should have been a more general mitzvah. Madua eifei nivchara mitzvah shmita she lechura mitzvah pratis. Why was the mitzvah shmita, which seems to be a very specific mitzvah. It doesn't have impact on the whole Torah. It doesn't have an impact in all situations. Only when there's a yovel, there's the Mitzvas Shemita. Now, when we already don't have the yovel, because the yovel ceased when there was the Aseres HaShvatim went into Golus during Bayis Rishon, so there wasn't Kol Yishvel Leha, so the yovel ceased already. So there are those that say it doesn't make a difference if the yovel ceased. The Mitzvah Shemita still applies now. It's only midrabanan that we have to do Shemitah after the yovel stops. So first of all, Zuag Bola Bezman. Shemitah is only noyeg at a certain time. Yesh gam Agbal B'makim. Noyeg is rak b'Eretz Yisrael, v'lei b'chutz la'aretz. That doesn't. So why take a mitzvah that's so limited? Take a mitzvah. It's a more general mitzvah. It's more applicable in every time and every place. Lefichach yesh echrach loymar shemitzvah shmita hi mebchinim suyames mitzvah klolos k'sheyuz bar lahalam. There must be something that makes it to a certain degree a general mitzvah. Beis behemshcha kosav ne'amar sheishon tizar shodecha v'sheishon tizmar karmecha lachura l'shema tzrichim dvarim elu le'yomer. Tell us what you're not supposed to do. Tell us the part that's the mitzvah. You're allowed to plant six years. You're allowed to take care of your vineyard 6 years. One of the Torah have to tell you something's permitted, that you should do something, when there might be a possibility to think that you can't do something. Here, there's no reason to think that you're not allowed to plant for 6 years. Why does the Torah even have to begin with this? Hechach lefi zeh loymar ki gam sheishon tizar sadecha goymer nichlol b'mitzvos hashmita ein hamitzvah misbatas rak b'shana hashvis Shabbos Shabbosim shekein gam sheishon tizar goymer mahava chelik min hamitzvah. So don't just think that it's the 7th year that we don't work the field that's part of the mitzvah. It's also the 6 years that we do work. That's part of the tzivui as well. The Rebbe says it has two components, two aspects. Ubeshtayin. Aleph, yesh bekach mishum achona lemitzvah shmita, kedei lekayim es ubeshona hashvis, Shabbos Shabbosin, yesh lehizdakek laachona shel sheishes shonim tizra. That's first of all. To be able to get to number 7, you have to go through 6. So it's a preparation. Beis zu tachlisa shel mitzvah shmita. The Rebbe turns it around. Usually we think after 6 years you work the 7th. No, just the opposite. The purpose of the 7th year is for the 6 years of work. Tachlis kavanas hashabasim shebeshana hashvis hikidei lakayim achar kachas sheishon tizra. What does that mean? He explains in Nois Gimel in Yana Shel Shemitah. Lefi pshutim shel dvarim hu shebeshana hashvis yesh habasim la'aretz. What's the simple idea? The 7th year, it's a sabbatical. The earth rests. Sadchlei tizra v'karmachlei tizmar v'goymer. Shabbosim b'chol malachas ha'adama shebehen nasa lechem chulu she'olav yichya adam. The person survives off of bread. Bread comes from the ground. That ground is something that you're supposed to not work during Shemitah. You're going to taina v'chisoyim l'manoichel. What are we going to eat? I will make my bracha, I will command it, and the crops and the produce of the 6th year will last for the 6th year, for the 7th year, until the harvest of the next year. After that, the 1st year of the next Shemitah, called also the 8th year. What is the inner content, the inner meaning behind it? He's asked to leave all his physical, his earthly needs. To avoid all the things that have to do with work of the earth, that has to do with bread. To trust Hashem. Get his parnasa beyond nature. It's only once in 7 How come? Why was this established? L'shem avodas habirurim, because we need to elevate and refine the sparks that are in the world, so we have to engage with the world. How does this come about? And where is this expressed? Because the world came about b'shem Elokim, like it says, Bereshis bara Elokim es Shemaim v'aretz vayomer Elokim yi'or vayomer Elokim yirakia shehu b'gematria hateva. The name Elokim is the same numerical equivalent as the nature. Why is that so? K'dei she'adam yasik al pi ha'torah b'inyoni hateva b'shvil l'zachacham u'levareram b'kach, to elevate the sparks and refine it. That is the normal way how a person works, 6 out of 7 years. Ach bezman misyon, specific, unique times, nidrish ha'yehudi lotzis min olam, to leave the world. Omnam yesh levares olam, true. Aval bezman min azmanim, tzricha liyis halicha bekivin shal hisyatzvus l'mayla menu, to be beyond and out of the world. And these are not two separate or opposing avoidus. One time in 7 years, he has to be out of this world. 6 out of 7 years, he has to be in the world. So you might think these are just two polar opposites. They don't have anything to do with each other. So the Rebbe says, no. Shnei dvarim elu tluyim zeh b'zeh. Halicha b'kivun shel shiatzes b'dargen naos min ha'olam. V'shof sa'ar Shabbos la'avaya, that the earth is resting because we are elevated from the world, which also has to do, la'havaya indicates haya hayvaviyah ke'echad. The word havaya indicates was, is, and will be as one. That's the word yud kei vav kei combines all these three words of haya hayvaviyah. Shehu na'ila m'shem Elokim. The combination of past, present, and future, that's above the name Elokim, shu b'gematria teva, because it's above nature to have time joined in such type of way. So yichoy l'lavay metoykach sha'amaga imaynyon ha'olam hu al pi Torah. It's a very interesting point. How do we make sure that the 7th year is taka, something that's a Shabbos la'avaya that has to do with above nature, if the 6 years that I was involved with the world, it is something that is ruled by the laws of Torah? Zu mashmas prata alf shalei lefiv mahav sheishon tizar sadecho goimer vari pirish tizar sadecho hu shebesaden nishmarim kol inyan v'Shulchan Aruch kigan kelayim v'chulu hachonol b'shon hashvinis. We said before that one of the ways of looking at this pasuk is that the 6 years are preparation for the 7th year. So when it says in the Torah, 6 years you shall sow your field, that means that the person is doing it al pi Torah. He's observing all the halachas, kilayim, and so on. By doing all the halachas in the Torah in those 6 years, so that becomes a preparation for the 7th. That is one way of looking of the interplay between the 6 years and the 7th year. Mashmos prata beisi, you have shodas lebirur in yonei olam ba ach v'rak mitachach shemepam lepam misroimim ma'odam ba'avodas Hashem shaloi ledarga anayas legamri min ha'olam. This is more well known, if you will, of the Rebbe's always bringing out this point. How is a person able to engage with the world? Because from time to time he transcends it. Then when he returns to engaging with the world, is not dragged down by it. He transforms the world itself to be a vessel.
I'll jump ahead for a second. Does he say anywhere what the way is nowadays? Is it Shabbos? What's the equivalent?
Yes, he's going to bring in Shabbos. Correct. The Rebbe Rashab says in Kuntas Eitz Chaim, Kedelis bedarges Yichud Tata. Kefi Adarish Chayev Liyos. Yichud Tata is a bittul called bittul Ayesh, where the person recognizes and sees the world as a world, but he realizes that Hashem creates the world, that the world is bottled to Hashem. To truly sense that, to truly observe that, to truly follow that recognition, so there has to be, there needs to be also a sense about how the world completely does not exist. Then, even when we give the existence of the world some value and some importance, so then it's imbued and informed by that otherworldly experience. The 6 years is the goal of the 7th year. Beforehand we said in the first way that the 6 years brings about the 7th year. Here we're talking about the second idea, that the 7th year enables the 6th year. It was a printing mistake over here, a typo. Only when a person frees themselves from the world for 1 out of 7 years, then it's possible for him to interact with the world during the 6 years in a way that he's able to transform it to make a keli for Elokus. And here he brings in the same interplay between Shabbos and the weekdays. Afterwards, he's going to explain also a lesson for us that Shemitah has that's even more powerful than Shabbos. But let's first see the way he says the Shabbos and the weekday interplay. Hey, b'tzura doime yeshna gama inyan shel Shabbos v'sheish yimei achol. B'sheish yimei achol ki amas avoyos haberodim. We also have to refine the sparks. Sheish yom tavod avol Shabbos boirer aser. And again, in a similar vein, just like in the Torah says, Sheish shanim tizra sodecha, b'shana shviz Shabbos la'Hashem Elokecha. And we asked over there, why does it have to tell you Sheish shanim tizra sodecha? The same thing, it doesn't go straight to the halacha of Shabbos in the Aseret Dibros and anywhere else. It doesn't say, on the 7th day of the week, Shabbos. No, it does the same idea. Sheishes Yomim Tavid. And then what's part of the Tavid is Avoyos HaBerurim. One of the Surim on Shabbos is, you're not allowed to be boyer, because Shabbos we don't engage with the world, we don't elevate the sparks. L'chein never b'Shabbos, Vayechal Elokim. The simple meaning of Vayechal Elokim means Elokim finished doing what he was doing. Breishis bar Elokim. Now, the 6th day, Vayechal Elokim. Chassidus explains, no. Vayechal Elokim means Kol ha'alam shel Shem Elokim kolim. Elokim stops. And why? Because now it's Shabbos Lavaya. Havaya takes over and Meir Shem Havaya Shalom Aylam HaTeva. V'shnei inyonim elu shel Shabbos v'choil tluyim zeh b'zeh k'muzbar. Like we said before, the 6 days, doing the 6 days the way you're supposed to do it, impacts and informs Shabbos, because the Chassidus always emphasizes the ruchnistic aspect. Kol mishutarach be'erev Shabbos, yoichel b'Shabbos. The work of the 6 days of the week, the avodas haberurim, elevates our avodah that takes place on Shabbos, and then the flip side as well. Our experience on Shabbos, that we disengage from the world, that causes that the next following 6 days is in a more impactful spiritual way where we are making the world a keli. So now he's going to contrast Shemitah and Shabbos and show the lesson from Shemitah in addition to the lesson from Shabbos that applies by us. Oizvav. La'mita shel davar yesh yisr l'shmitah l'gabe Shabbos. Hari Shabbos asur be'uvdin d'choil. Va'adam nimtza az be'efei be'darge shel ha'maylam and ha'olam ve'en l'kesh kol kesher elav. On Shabbos, the person is almost totally removed from the world, completely severed any connection with the world. Al b'shmita mutarim sha'aruvdin d'choil. It's only working the field. V'adam nimtza efei b'toich ha'olam u'b'chol zois shafsa har Shabbos la'avayim. Ain't kan inyan shal avodas habirurim sheb'shem Elokim kim Shabbos la'avaya, like we said before, which is beyond the world. Shalom aylam ha'olam shalom rois shadam nimtza b'toich ha'olam. Still in all, ba'olam atzmai u'mamshich shem havaya nailam in ha'olam legamri. This is a favorite thing of the Rebbe, to use the merging of two things, the above and the below, and that merging is stronger in Shemitah than what we find in Shabbos. The Baal Shem Tov touches on this sugi of Shemitah. What's it mean v'shafsa haaretz? Shvisa v'izbatlus ba'aretz, bringing the bittul into the ground. Hachdaras hashvisa el toicha inyanim artzim atzmam, which happens when I'm still engaging with worldly things. It's just the work of the land I'm not engaging in. Kach yuvan ha'omer Rashi lepasuk v'Shabbos lavayim. Rashi explains a very interesting thing. Why does it say v'shafsa aretz Shabbos lavayim? It should have just said v'shafsa aretz. 7 years, 7th year v'shafsa aretz. The earth rests. What's the Shabbos lahavayim? So Rashi says l'shem havayim kishem shenamar b'Shabbos bereishis. Just like concerning the 7th day of the week, Shabbos bereishis, that it's a Shabbos lahavayim. It says that lashon in Torah. The same thing applies for Shemitah. What's Rashi trying to teach us? What does it help? What does it add? He does engage with the world, so you might think it doesn't have to do with Shem Havaya. He's still stuck with Shem Elokim. Kim inyan shal avodas haberurim. Dogmas mitzvah sheishan tizra goyim shal bir v'secha olam v'olam ma'alam manu. You might think he's still within the world. Magdim eifei Rashi v'oimer. Rashi prefaces and says, sheyesh kan inyan l'shem avaya kishem shenamar b'Shabbos bereishis. Identical to that. Harei lefanenu shvisas ha'oretz shemenu teitzei lechem. You're making the earth rest from a very basic thing. Of all the labors that a person does, the most crucial and vital is where he gets his sustenance from. His bread. That's what comes from the ground. Iker chayes ha'adam. V'im kein harezu his'alus v'hispashtus min ha'olam kishem shel b'Shabbos bereishis. He's stopping the source of where his chayes comes from. So it's just like a regular Shabbos of the 7 days of the week, that you're elevated from the world. It doesn't detract from it. You're going to say, Shemitah is not like Shabbos, because Shabbos, we remove ourselves from all mundane activities. Shemitah, it's only the work of the ground. She says, no, just the opposite. This is an advantage. Because then you have the coalescing, the merging of the two. You have above the world, in the world. According to what we said, we can understand why it's such a general mitzvah. This is the inner content of all the mitzvahs. By the Shmita, this is something revealed. How is that so? Admur Azakin Mazur Betanyam, Sha'esek Betoira Bemitzvos Vatfila, Hem Inyan Shal Mesiras Nefesh Mamish. When a person is davening, learning, doing mitzvahs, he's raising up his soul to Hashem. Identical to when it's leaving the body. It's not thinking about the bodily needs. It's thought, just like the neshama when it leaves the body, is totally immersed in the words of Torah and davening. This means to say, during being involved in Torah, mitzvahs, and davening, the feeling and the sense has to be like the soul after it left the body. So when a person is davening and learning and doing mitzvahs, he has to be raising up his soul to Hashem. Mitzvah sheni, on the other hand, mitzvahs have to be engaged with the world. Nidrash Adam Shekol mitzvah shumakayim take it to kuna. It has to follow the halacha. B'chol agbol shalom b'zman u'makim, all its limitations in time and place. Or b'chol digdukim sheb'chol mitzvah, and all the details of every mitzvah. B'rekol elu hagbola shalom. All of these are the limitations of the world. Pirush hadavar eifoy. So if so, the meaning behind this is nitzol hanechoynes shal mesiras nefesh, using out this readiness and the fact that he's available to totally devote himself to Hashem and sacrifice himself to Hashem, shall ishtachrus min haguf min hagashmis, of releasing himself and freeing himself from the body and from the physical, l'shem kiyum be'emtzeusam atzmam, for the sake of using that body itself and using that gashmish itself to be as a mitzvah b'chol pratev d'gdukah. You're taking the physical that you're releasing yourself from, and at the same time using it as a tool for the mitzvah, which is again that joining of the two opposites, hamshachas bligvul bigvul, the drawing down of the unbounded, the infinite in the finite. Ella shebestama mitzvahs hadover kaim behelam, in ordinary mitzvahs this matter is usually concealed. It's only recognized in the manner in which he fulfills the mitzvah, meaning that he is at one hand, on the one hand he raises himself higher than the mitzvahs. On the other hand, he is just the opposite. He is engaged in the details of the mitzvah. But it's not the particular mitzvah that expresses it. When it comes to Shemitah, this joining and coalescing the two is in the very theme of the mitzvah itself. Avol Mitzvas Shemita ba'adover begoli, the matter comes out in a revealed way. V'unikar be'etzam mitzvah, it's recognizable in the very essence of the mitzvah itself. I believe we'll stop over here. And the next part, I told you, the second half of the Sikha was a lot about Har Sinai and Matan Torah. So I guess maybe we'll learn this before Shavuos, maybe we'll learn this next week, the second half of the Sikha.